Hey, welcome to episode 5 of For This Reason. It is great to have you joining us. My name is Dan. This is Ray. And on this episode, we have a special guest, which we've been journeying with, our friend Dave, who we'll be kind of chatting to. So on this episode, we are talking about was it worth the risk? Which is an interesting question. And I think it's something that we can kind of ask ourselves in any situation of our lives. Was it worth the risk? And what we're talking about here is clearly, was it worth the risk sort of stepping out, following God? Was it worth the risk starting a business or changing careers? And they're the kind of things that we're talking about. For you, Ray, so in your background, was it worth the risk? Is there any point in your life that you can think, was it worth the risk?
I think for me, stepping out of something you've always known is something that's, hard to do. Initially, you've got that kind of ease of life or pace of life that you can just kind of get on with it. Yeah. And it just becomes, that's the routine. But then when you decide to step out, you have to do it purposefully. You can't just... it's not something that happens by accident, is it? And so for me, like, the biggest thing I did was move my family to the other side of the planet. And that was leaving everything that we knew, everything that we were comfortable with, and everything that we were kind of familiar with. We sold our home. And this was all because God said, go that way. Yeah. And I remember, like, Abraham and Sarah, like, when they were in Haran, and God said, go that way. And they did. They left and they went that way. And that's kind of where I see us as Christians, not just for myself, but for all of us in some way or another. We all end up going that way. Yeah. And it's about what that looks like. And for me, it looked like moving to the Philippines and doing what God called us to do there. For you, it's going to look different. For Dave, and I know it looked different for you as well. So that's, for me, that was kind of the big thing for me.
Yeah. So it's great having you on the show.
Thank you.
You run Redside.
I do.
Along with Paul.
Yep, 50% of the...
50%. You only run the good side of Redside, which is always good to know. So tell us a bit about your background before Redside.
Sure. So I grew up in Northern Ireland. So I lived in Northern Ireland until I was about 11. And lived through a kind of turbulent time with the troubles that was happening there. My parents had separated, and so my dad was from Bournemouth, and my mum was from Northern Ireland. So I headed to live with my dad when I was 11 to start secondary school. And whilst I'd been in a Catholic upbringing in Ireland, my dad was a Christian, and so started going to church, to a Baptist church, and became a Christian when I was 12, which was great. And went through school, did GCSEs, did A-levels, and then got to a point where I thought, what am I going to do with my life? And through various circumstances, I started working at an investment bank, and I was 19, 20, and thought, I'll just do this as a stopgap. I need some finance, I need to, a bit of security in my life, pay my rent. And 12 years later, I was still there. I was doing reasonably well.
It's a long stopgap.
It was a slightly longer stopgap than I'd anticipated it would be, and had a great job. Enjoyed very much the time that I spent there. No regrets at all.
That's cool.
And yeah, really, investment banking was a good place to be. Went through the financial crisis,
survived,
working in the bank, and no regrets of my time there at all.
Before sort of going through that turning point where you left that and set up Redside, was there any point in your life going through that sort of your thinking of like, do I involve God in this, or where was your walk with God during that time? So
as I said, I've been a Christian since I was 12, and I would say that working at the bank was comfortable, but I really struggled to be a Christian. Really found it difficult to be in that environment, to be in an office with 50 to 100 people, and really feeling like, whilst I wasn't doing things that were non-Christian, so to speak, I wasn't living a life that was like truly faithful to Christ. And so I really found it difficult, and I don't have one moment where I thought I need to do something different, something for God, something. But it was interesting. My wife was not a massive fan of me being at the bank,
Wow, that's interesting.
because for no real reason. There was nothing significant. She just felt like there was more to life than me working for a corporate machine.
Yeah.
And so over the years that we've been married, we've had conversations about various things, and there were a few things that started kind of trickling into my mind that I thought, maybe I should do something else.
That's good. So how come when you say you find it tough to sort of be a Christian in that environment, what do you think it was? Was it the comfort of what you were doing? Was it the routine of what you were doing? Just what do you reckon it was that kind of silenced that part of you?
I think it was fear of not being accepted.
Okay.
So when I was 19, 20, that's very different to where I am now. And when you're forging a career and it's all about making impressions on people and showing that you are the right person for the job, and you're going for the next promotion, whether you're driven for success or not, there's always that carrot being dangled, and so you're always trying to pursue that kind of dream that you're sold, which is, well, you'll learn a bit more, or you'll be more responsible or more important, and so I think I at that time I couldn't really marry up in my own mind being a Christian, which I was, and was involved in churches, and it was important to me, but it was like there were kind of two parts to me. There was my work life, which was not an outward display of my Christianity.
That's funny you say that, because we actually had the part of our conversation on the last episode was about knowing your capacity, and a lot of the time we do, we can defragment who we are, and we can end up having that kind of, we said this, church Ray, work Ray, mates Ray, family Ray, and we can actually end up with these four sort of personality traits almost, where we express different parts of who we are in different areas of our life. And so it's great to see that I wasn't the only one feeling that, so it's fine.
No, definitely not. I mean, it's not something that you're conscious of while you're in the moment. It's only when you look back and you think, yeah, actually.
I think when we're younger, we have that idea in our heads that in the future something will be different. In the future, we'll get this sorted now. We'll get those foundations in a worldly sense. We'll get those foundations sorted, and then we can look to give money to charity, or we can look to do something bigger then. But let's get settled first. I think potentially that's some thread which comes out from schooling. School is very much, you need to go through school, you need college, you need a degree, and then you need to go into a job which pays for this and that and the other. So even that set up from an early age, we're kind of conditioned that that's what we're meant to do. Very little does God kind of come in to that conversation, especially not in schools. Like, when would there ever be a chance in a school environment where a teacher goes, well, have a prayer about it first and see where God's directing you? It just doesn't happen in this in this country, and probably vast majority of countries. So during that time, was there a sort of a turning or a shift, or was it one moment you just went, I've had enough?
No, so right up to my last day at the bank, I enjoyed my time, and so there was never a point when I thought this is on the decline, I'm going downhill. What did happen was, as my wife and I were kind of having these discussions about, is the bank the right place to be, and what does the future hold? One of the things that kept niggling at me was, we've been through a financial crisis, and it's a fairly volatile industry to be in, because there are redundancies because of offshoring and lots of things. And so there was always a slight concern of, am I going to be one of those people? Like, as I'm promoted through the ranks, you're almost more at risk of being
more of a target.
Yeah, you are. You've got that target on your back kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and as you earn more and more and more, it's better to get rid of you and offload you, because that reduction in salary helps everybody's budget. So there's always that concern. And middle of the night, our son was about 6 weeks old, I think, and he woke up needing to be fed, and so I woke up as well. And me and my wife had a conversation, and we just said, "What shall I do? Like, what shall I do with life? What are the options?"
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Not at 3 a.m., but I mean,
it's more of around the dinner table type of conversation.
Yeah. And so, and I thought to myself, well, look, I need to. I had no skills at all in the construction industry, and I was scared of drilling a wall, and all of those silly things. And I thought, I need a trade, and I need something that people need to pay me for. So something that requires a qualification or some sort of scheme. So I looked at plumbing, and I looked at electrician. And what I did was I decided that I thought, well, let's train as an electrician. It's always something I can fall back on. I'll have the qualifications, and I can do it part-time. So I can train whilst I'm still working, and then at some point I can make a decision. Yeah. Shall I go this way? Shall I go that way? I can do it on the side, whatever it might be. And so it wasn't such a hard and fast, God's saying, stop banking, start being an electrician. Yeah. It was, well, let's just ease you down this path, and you can do two in parallel, and then we'll see what happens.
That's really cool. And I think that's really cool, because for me that kind of displays the gentleness of God, because I think a lot of the time people can't cope with the quick cut and dry of now stop, now go and do this. A lot of people can't deal with that, especially when they've got families and they've got like obviously kids and stuff like that. It takes a lot of prep and preparation. I think there's a lot of wisdom to what you did. So I really honor that, and I just say well done for that. But I just think God's on a journey with us, right? And so the quick cut and dry of life can sometimes be more on us than it can be on God. There are moments when God says, okay, go now, you need to go now. But other than that, I think God does the journey. And this, from what you're saying, I'm just loving the story. I'm loving hearing you talk, because it's really cool, because I get to hear this journey that God's done with you. And it wasn't like this big flash of light. And I think that's kind of what we're looking for sometimes, is we are looking for that bolt of lightning to come out the sky and tell us what to do. But in fact, it's actually a slow transition of the heart that takes place. And for me, that actually displays a deeper work when there is that slow transition, because that means God's really in it. It's not an emotional moment. It's a God moment, and which takes more time, because it's actually redirecting your heart, which I think is really amazing.
What's interesting that I found through my journey throughout my Christianity is that I am yet to experience a lightning bolt moment. That's not the way that God speaks to me. And people will say, oh, God speaks to me in this way or that way. Actually, for me, God doesn't point and say, okay, now you're going to head this way. God closes doors for me. Yeah. So I went to Africa at the end of my A-levels, and I applied to 2 organizations, and only one of them got back to me. And so for me, it was, okay, that door's been shut. Yeah. And you're going with this organization. When choosing a trade, I contacted some plumbing firms and some electrical firms, and I didn't hear back from the plumbing firms. I was like, okay, fine, right, I'm heading down the electrical route. And that's, for me, it's doors closing, not corralling me in a certain...
You keep saying yes to God and just say, if these are wrong, then just shut it down. Which is good.
What I'm really noticing, though, and this is key, and I think this is important to just people who have decided to journey by faith and just to walk with God, that God is directing you because you are moving. It's very difficult to move someone that's not moving. or direct someone that's not moving, But the fact that you were moving meant that God could direct you. And I think that's the key part of the fact that you had geared up in your mind, you had decided in your heart that you were going to move. And you went in a direction and God flowed with you and directed you in that. If you never moved, he wouldn't be able to direct you, would he? So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really key. I like that, and also considering sort of, was it worth the risk type of thing. If you know that there's definite no's, then you know that those yeses are definite yeses, and the risk factor for yourself is like, okay, God, you've made that quite clear for me, so I know which way to go, and in terms of sort of like say the risk factor, that's kind of reduced because you're walking in steps which you know that God's sort of laid out for you. So going from where you were there, then that middle of the night conversation and everything, and choosing to go down the electrician route, you were still working for the investment bank at that time, and then so when obviously had you completed that course and you were still working at the bank, or okay, so. Beyond that time, having that qualification as an electrician, when did you make the decision, now I'm going to hand in my notice?
So, again, another God circumstance. So I'd been promoted to a particular level at the bank, and I decided to go and speak to my boss and say, "What do you reckon about me going part-time?" And so back then, which was 13, 14 years ago, going part-time was for people at the level I was at, was for new mums or those who were kind of job sharing at the end of their career, and so they were not offering it to guys who were 30, 31. But I went to them and I said, do you think I could do part-time, knowing that I could do my job in 3 days and have 2 days where I could get practicing with my electrical work? And much to my amazement, they said, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'd like to keep you. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
3 days. And so, again, it wasn't a bolt of lightning. It wasn't, right, you're moving this way. It was
just another open door.
We'll just take you down this route. So you've gone from full-time to part-time and building some confidence with the electrical work. And so I did that for about 5 months.
That's really cool.
And then it became, okay, I can't serve 2 masters. That's really good. It was almost you can't commit to doing banking, because for 3 days I was project managing, but for those 2 days nothing was happening with them. And I couldn't take on any substantial electrical jobs, because in 2 days, if you go to rewire someone's house and you say, yeah, I can do it, it will take me 6 days, but that's over 3 weeks. So you're gonna be in chaos for that time.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work. No. So at that point, I then thought, okay, what do I do? Yeah. What makes most sense? And what made sense was to stay at the bank. Okay. What didn't make sense was to leave and go and be an electrician.
See, I love that. That's the risk factor we're talking about, isn't it? Like, because that's where you look at all your comforts, you look at all you know what you obviously, with the bank, you knew what you had. Yeah. With being an electrician, you didn't know what you were going to have. And so I love that risk factor, but what God did with you, and I think it's so beautiful. And I think, again, this is not, with all respect, this is not special with you, is it? God does this with all of us, where he wants to journey with us and build our faith and build our trust in him to a point where we're at the edge and we think, well, God, you've brought me this far. If I jump now, I know you've got me. And so that's really cool. So you got to that point, you couldn't serve 2 masters. Then what? Tell me what happened.
So really, it was a ridiculous idea, from a worldly perspective, because at that point I was leaving a comfortable, well-paid, pensioned, sick pay, holiday pay, all the comforts that you have, and I was going to do a trade full-time that I didn't really have a huge amount of experience in.
With a young family.
With a young family, my wife wasn't working, so I was then going to become the sole earner as a self-employed individual. And it was, I remember for that first year turning up at jobs, and I would drive into the road and my heart would be thumping, because I'd be going somewhere not knowing what to expect, how I was going to do the work, because I didn't have a background of construction. I'd come from a nice office job in an air-conditioned office to, putting up security lights and fixing problems for people that I had never encountered before. And so from a worldly perspective, it really was just ridiculous.
What was your prayer life like during that time?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good because I would, every morning I would look at the diary and think, I'm going into the lion's den. I do not know what's coming, and I'm not prepared for it. But I know I'm on this journey because God has just laid it all before me. And so where I struggled to be a Christian in the workplace at the bank, suddenly I was being forced to be a Christian in the workplace in my new role, because I had to rely fully on God. It was absolutely everything. There's no way I could have done it myself because of lack of experience. I was not cut out for this job that I had just plunged into. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't ready for it.
No, I love those feelings after they've happened.
Yeah. Looking back on them, it's great, but it's
so
tough.
So Paul is an old time friend of yours as well. When did that sort of combination happen and go forward to Redside?
So I left the bank in June 2014, and I started doing this electrical work. Paul and I had known each other since we were 10, 11. So we've gone back a long, long way and have always been friends. And Paul trained as a bricklayer back just at the end of his A-levels. And then for various reasons, he parked that, but always kept it going on the side, just, building brick walls and, blocking up doorways and stuff like that. And then Paul's circumstances changed with family, and his civil servant job was not conducive to having children, and that kind of came into the mix around that time. And as I was starting to take on a bit more of a kind of a project management role, because being an electrician was a means to an end for me. It was a way of kind of moving my career into a place where I was more in control of my destiny, and I was able. I mean, when I left the bank, my idea was, well, I'm never going to work a Friday, because I can do 4 days a week, and that fifth day I'm just going to enjoy with the family, and I'm yet to have a Friday off. And that was
so. In the second week, what did you do?
And so I then spoke to Paul, and I kind of encouraged him, and I said, well, I've got a few more projects that are happening, some kitchens and some doing other things which weren't electrical. They were more general building, and I needed a second pair of hands, someone I could trust. Obviously, I trust Paul implicitly, and so I said to him, look, why don't you come and help me on your days off? So he did, and gradually over time, he could see the appeal, I think, of actually this way of life is different to what I'm currently doing, and actually it may be better for me.
He's not here to defend himself.
No, absolutely. I can say what I like.
For sure.
But he then took the plunge a couple of years after I took the plunge. And so we had our own companies for a while. So I would kind of provide electrical project management, and he would operate his, so that we'd have kind of separate jobs, and we dip into each other's worlds. And then come 2018, we said, well, actually we're growing, and we're kind of getting momentum, and we have a good network of people. Why don't we amalgamate and join forces, kind of more permanently, and see what happens? You know, we're both Christians. We know each other well. We both have the same values. We both want the same thing. So let's see what happens.
How important though? Just a quick question: when you guys decided to come together and make that team, how important do you think the values were that you had?
Oh, massive. It wouldn't, for us, it wouldn't work unless God was at the center and we were both walking in exactly the same direction. Neither of us are financially driven to the same degree as others may be, because we both had jobs where we were good at it, that we got paid well and were really secure. Okay. And so knowing that, we both know that we're not in it for that reason. And so we had to kind of, we got to a point where we said, well, this is why we're doing it. You know, these are the values that we bring to our kind of combined company, and they're exactly the same.
Something that we've talked about in past episode is that feeling of peace. That like there is different types of peace. You can have that worldly peace and quiet, but there is that godly peace. And when we have that, there's sort of a lot of reassurance in that. Going through that transition and that slow phase of going from one thing to another and then joining the ball, would you say that you felt at peace with all of that? There wasn't any sort of, I'm really scared or...
No. So I think having someone to walk alongside you is a massive benefit, because you're not risking everything on your own. Yeah. There are two of you, and like with anything, with a marriage or with brotherhood, or you know, any sort of coming together of two parties, you're stronger for it. Yeah. And you've got the support of someone else and backup. And for me and for Paul, like we could probably make a go of it on our own, but it wouldn't be as successful, or it wouldn't have as much impact as the two of us pulling together, because we both bring very, very different things to the table. There are things that Paul is very strong at that I am absolutely not. And there are things that I'm able to bring that Paul isn't interested in or doesn't have the same skills. And so I think if we were two people of exactly the same skills, bringing both of them together, that could maybe cause problems. Yeah. But it definitely doesn't.
It's the diversity and unity, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, you know, when we look at unity, especially now, when we talk about like the church in general, if, for example, you know, we can have unity, but it doesn't mean we're all the same. Yeah. We can be completely diverse, but still have unity. And that's just simply because we've got the same heartbeat, in the sense that God's first. Yeah. Can I ask you a real quick question? Mm-hmm. I've had the conversation with someone recently, and I think it's really key. Why do you think God's so important to have? Why does God need to be in the middle of it?
That's where all of our values lie, is from what God has done for us and what we read in the Bible. And so those values are paramount to everything that we do as a company, but everything that Paul and I are kind of focusing on and striving for. And so if we didn't have God at the center, we would have separate focal points. We would have separate goals or milestones or things that we are putting in place that we are trying to achieve in our strength. That's really good. And for us, it can seem like a kind of blasé get out of jail card, but it's like, this is God's. God is in the center. Therefore, if we're doing what he wants us to do, then we can't go too far wrong, because he will guide our path. Yeah. And if if he wants us to go down a certain route, then fine. We are confident in knowing that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and that he wants the best for us long term. And so, we may go through a rocky situation, but actually that's okay. That's not really our primary concern. We need to let go and say, God, you're at center.
That's awesome.
And this is probably where we open up into seeing some of the beautiful stuff which is happening with Redside and what you're doing, and also a little bit of the answer to, was it worth the risk as well. So tell us a little bit about what you do, or what you feel God has asked you to do in your business and for employees or clients, and just tell us a bit about the current journey.
So we started April 2018, and we started with just me and Paul. So we were bringing in others who we knew had particular skills, but they would come in for a week or 2 weeks and then would leave us, and then we would book them in for another period of time. But we had a sense that actually there are those in our community, in our circle of contacts, that maybe are less privileged than us. So they maybe are deemed to be worthless, or they haven't been able to secure a job, or their skills are not valued in where they are. And so we decided that through friendship with certain people and just through network contacts, etc., that we would engage with a few people who needed some employment. So we would either they would subcontract to us, or we would look to employ them. And so we started out and we had one guy, and that then increased. A couple of friends from church were in jobs where they were really struggling, and so we said, look, get out of your current job. We will give you security for 6 months or whatever it might be. Use that time just to sit and wait on the Lord.
That's awesome.
And then decide what you're going to do from that point, rather than trying to be in a job that you're hating and struggling with and trying to find something else. Just break that chain, come to us, build some skills, and then you can decide what you want to do next. And we will try and keep you for as long as we can employed, give you some skills, and then you can go off and do whatever you want to.
How do you get to that place? I mean, that's such a big deal. I mean, that's huge in someone's world. I mean, how do you get to that place where you come up with that as an idea? Like, what did that look like? Did you talk to Paul? Did you come up with it? Did you have a team meeting about it?
No, I mean, it was just a natural thing. So the guy who originally started out with us, he worked in construction, but had just had confidence beaten out of him, really, through being mistreated and just, like you could see physically, like his demeanor he was just defeated, and it was a cycle that was ongoing. And so we wanted to ensure that, like, we could help him. We were like, how can we help him? And so it was just a natural thing to say, you're in a bad place, let's pull you out of that. And so a bit like you would if you saw someone by the side of the road who was in danger, who was struggling, you'd say, no, come on, help. We can do that for you.
And that's quite an uncommon thing within the construction industry as well. So the construction industry as a sort of a view is quite hardy, and you've got to be a sort of a tough person to get through that. So to also have that openness and go, well, we can see you're in a bad place, but we'll come and join us and we'll support you.
Yeah, and I think that stems from, or one of the things it stems from is not having a financial target, not being driven by, we need to make this much money a month. I need to have this standard of holiday. I need to drive this car, have this house. Because if we were driven by those things, you're trying to employ the cheapest people and get as much work from them as possible. Whereas Paul and I would both agree that what's more important is the person, that the person feels honoured and that they're able to take a wage home that isn't the bare minimum, that they're able to survive on, that their family is able to survive on. Because there are too many people who, have family situations that are so stressful that they're living in a cramped 1-bed flat and there's 6 of them, or they go into a food bank daily or weekly, whatever it might be, because they're struggling to make ends meet. And so for us, we don't want to contribute to that problem. We want to try and help deal with the problem. Yeah. And that's through paying people properly, which then means that we're honouring them.
Definitely.
And so by not having that financial drive for me and Paul to make as much money as we can, we're at liberty to go, do you know what? Come and work with us for a week. We'll pay you for a week. It may be difficult for us, but actually you need this. So let's put you ahead of us.
And you can kind of see that, and this is from a bit of an outsider's view, and I'm kind of looking in, is you can kind of see God honouring you with your clients and everything, because you're kind of honouring God in supporting others within the business. I know that God's opened up a lot of good doors for you with different clients as well. Tell us a bit about like those. Pick an opportunity that's just like arisen and you go, that's got to be God.
Yeah.
Anyone had the number.
I mean, so we've had lots of those circumstances come since 2018. So 2018 we started, and really for Paul and I, we don't come from a construction background. So 2018, both Paul and I were in our mid-30s, and so we've missed out on 15 years of construction background, really. So the people who are coming to us and saying, we'd like you to build an extension for us, we're kind of thinking, why? Why do you want us to do it? Like, what's the rationale behind it? But it's because people want people they can trust and that they can have a conversation with and that has their best interests at heart. And actually, some of the greatest successes for us have been the jobs that we've turned down, because people have come to us and said, we've inherited some money, which is always easy to spend, by the way. You can spend anyone's money, but we've inherited some money, and so it's been suggested that we build this on our house. And through conversation with them, we'll work out that that's not actually what they need. Yeah. You don't need this extension to fix what's happening in your family or your house.
That's amazing.
So actually, if that's the work that you want done, then we're not the people for you, because we want you to turn around at the end and go, actually, they were nice chaps, they were fair, they had integrity, and actually they've solved the problem that we faced in our property.
Yeah. Again, something which is quite relatively rare within construction. Again, you've got sort of those that sort of, you've got to be a hardy type and tough person, and you've got the cowboy type of image. Not that applies to everyone, but you've got that reputation that you're going to go in, you're going to be taking lots of money, and you're just going to get the job done and disappear, sort of thing, on good scenarios. But here you're having this feeling that no, let's dig deeper. Let's find out what you really need. Do you need this project done, or actually can we change that? And there is a lot of value that people find from that. And as you build those relationships with people, they're likely to be clients that will stay around and ask you to do things well into the future, because they know, I'm not going to go anywhere else because I know I can trust these. I know that I could hand them the keys, walk off, come back, and it'll be done, because that's the value, which is a real sort of key point for that.
I love this. I think it's just awesome to see your heart. I mean, I really love what you're doing. I love your heart towards people. And I think it's really interesting to hear that statement. Like, I want to pay people properly, and I want to, that stuff, that just doesn't happen. No. It just doesn't happen. I'm saying that to my boss. No, I'm just saying that it happens now. Now it's fine. No, but it's just that language that you've got is such a lovely kingdom language. Yeah. And the whole mentality that you guys have got, where we're not going to chase money, we're not going to push targets, we're going to serve people. That's such a Jesus thing, mate. And I really honour that. I really take my hat off to that. If I was wearing one, I would. But it's just such a huge blessing for me to hear this, because I think there's so many people that could be inspired by what you're doing, but also be blessed by what you're doing. And I just see what I see time and time again, and through listening to you, I'm seeing again, God is not giving you lightning bolt moments, but actually changing your heart over a course of time. And that the vision that you've got now wasn't a response of a moment, but rather a desire to meet a need. And now that desire to meet a need and serve people and pursue the heart of God, all of a sudden you've ended up with this amazing vision within your company and a culture within your company that is a turning down work because you care more about the person than you do about the money that you're going to get from the job. I mean, how does that look? Can I ask, how does that look day to day? I mean, there's that, because that's a big thing. That's huge. Yeah. But what does that look like in your world, like daily?
So things have changed quite a lot in the last 18 months. They, 2 years probably. So up until probably end of 21, and obviously COVID came along, and that was a challenging time. Yeah, I mean, it was. But again, we were really blessed. Like, COVID came along, and actually, we were able to continue working. We were in a derelict bungalow, and so during the lockdown, like the first day of lockdown, my journey to work was 8 minutes. It was amazing. There was not one.
Bournemouth, that's a big thing.
It is, because not one car on the road, and we were able to continue working in a safe way. And so, I mean, God, like, continually blessing us. But since kind of end of 2021, our team has grown from 2-3 people, and we've now got 18 of us. Yeah. So in this last week, we peaked at 18. So mixture of employed and self-employed. But so day to day, there isn't really a kind of standard, because there's just so much happening, and so we're having some growing challenges, as you'd expect, because we've gone from me and Paul being able to write on the back of a post-it note like, this is what we're going to do, to having to have procedures in place, and just lots of regulatory stuff. But in terms of how we operate, we try and keep the focus as we need to do what God wants us to do. We need to honor people. We need to honor our clients. We need to make sure that we are being as much like Christ in our workplace as possible. And as long as we hold on to those values, then we're not going to go too far wrong, I don't think. And contrary to that, actually, things have kind of grown exponentially in the last, year.
That's awesome.
And I've had the opportunity to kind of see how you're supporting that culture within your teams as well, which is probably something that we can talk on at another occasion, get you back in, but keeping that where you've got the two of you with that strong heart for God and everything, and as that grows, maintaining that same culture and that same honouring to God and bringing glory to God in that wider team is no easy thing, because again you start bringing people in who have got different ideas and different plans.
I think the nucleus is key. So what we have is, there's Paul and I, but actually we've realised that we are dependent on other people, and so kind of strategically getting alongside certain people and saying, actually, come and work with us. We'll give you this opportunity. get out of the difficult situation you're in, but actually then making use of that person and helping them develop. Richard Branson said, like, train people so that they are able to leave, but treat them so they don't want to. Yeah. And that's always been my go-to, my kind of anything that's not from God, not biblical.
It's Richard Branson.
Is Richard Branson. But that's my one takeaway from him. Because we want to make sure that everyone is empowered and they're able to do whatever that, to reach their potential. If they then want to leave us and go off, then it's a success. And we've always classed that as a success, is they're off and able to go and do whatever they want to on their own. But actually, we want to make sure that, going back to the pay as an example, we want to treat them or have an environment where they actually want to come to work. And so that's really important for us.
That's really cool. So as you grow, how do you keep that heartbeat that you and Paul started with? How do you make sure that the rest of your team have got that same heartbeat?
Probably primarily, it's an easier place to be a Christian in this workplace versus our previous workplaces. Both Paul and myself would say that our previous roles were challenging to be Christians, whereas this is definitely much easier. But it's just displaying the character of God as best we can in the things that we do. So honouring our clients, being respectful, treating our clients well, treating our staff well, making sure that they are paid on time, making sure that we are not doing anything that will kind of detract from the Christian message that we're trying to portray to both people who work with us and to clients. And that's of paramount importance to us. And so, having integrity and involving everybody in all aspects of the business. So talking to people and saying, no, we're going to do this for free for this person because we want to donate a day's time to paint this person's lounge or something. Those who aren't Christians will look at that and go, why? What are you getting out of it? And then that's the opportunity, because the door is then open to say, well, actually, we're doing it because this is what Christ would do. Christ would honour others by having less for himself and more for other people. And so now Paul and I don't get it right as much as we want to / need to. Yeah. But if we start with that as our starting point, and that's what we're striving for, then if we miss a mark, it's okay. There's grace for it. Yeah. But it's
So kind of two things to kind of end with. Firstly, do you knowing this story, how God has just sort of been there and gradually moved you? You might not have an answer to this, but do you feel that God, or what have you any idea what God's directing you to now, or has got in plan?
So we really feel, and we had an annual review meeting yesterday actually. We really feel like it's more of the same, but continue to expand, because Paul and I both have a heart to continue. We can see the value of what we're doing. We know that we're doing it for God. We're doing it for the right reasons, and if He calls time on it, that's fine. But we feel like there's more that we can be doing. So there are more people that we can reach. We can enable more families to have a better lifestyle, or just a less difficult situation. So I think that's probably what. There's nothing like ground shaking.
Lightning bolts.
No, nothing.
So just to kind of finish off then, going back to that first question, would you, looking now where you think the finance Dave would have been and now, Would you say it was worth the risk?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. There's always been the lure of going back to my previous life, and there's always opportunities to, and I could, as time goes by, that opportunity gets smaller, but there's always the opportunity to go back. But if you look at the difference that I'm making, and the difference that Paul's making, and the difference that our company's making in the community and the lives of others, I would say from what we were doing to what we're doing now, there's no comparison.
That's awesome.
Completely different, and we know that there's more to come. Like we're confident that
Amen.
we're just.
It's lovely when you've got that anticipation. You know that God is ready to do more ahead. Yeah, that's great. Anything else from?
No, I'm just. We could sit and talk all day, couldn't we? I mean, it's so good what you're doing.
We'll get him back on.
We're getting back on. Oh, that's right then.
Yeah.
If you have me, thank you.
No, you guys are amazing, and we're excited to see you grow, and we're excited to see
definitely
what God does with you next. Because no doubt, with how big your hearts are now, I can't imagine they're going to get smaller. No, I can only see them getting bigger and bigger. And my prayer for you guys is that God puts people around you that reflect your heartbeat, and guard that heartbeat with all passion, and so it just means it makes it easier for you to grow, because I think it's tough to grow when you constantly having to check that people are still for you. So we just pray that God puts people around your world that are going to guard your heart, guard that heartbeat in the business.
Thank you.
All right, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave, for coming on. We hope
welcome.
you've enjoyed this episode. And if you've got any questions, then feel free to contact us with the links below. Otherwise, we will see you on the next episode of For This Reason.